Hello, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jay Shofet of Chevral Aganat Teva, Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, coming to you in one of our regular live webinars from my home in Tel Aviv. With us today is the esteemed Professor Yossi Leshem, I believe coming to us from his home in Hargilo, and David Amichai doing back office as often as usual from his home in Jerusalem. So covering 3 points in Israel, and we're happy to see everybody here. Please let us know where you're from, that you're here, all the way from Vancouver. And Maggie and Leon, great to see you guys. Leon, longtime former board chair. A lot of people, Yossi, signed up for this webinar, close to 300. We already have over 125 here with us. So, hi, Judy. Looking forward to see you soon in Israel. Russell, Leon's longtime partner, and a lot of familiar names from all over the place. Really happy to see people from Virginia and Illinois and Ra'anana and Brooklyn and Modi'in and Tiberias and Sleepy Hollow, one of my favorite places, Beersheba, Norway. It's from Berkeley. Herzliya. Anyway, guys, it's great everybody's here taking up some time and learning some interesting things here in your late morning, early afternoon if you're in the States. I know some people are waking up early for this. Bob Rubinoff in Hawaii, for example. Shout out to him and to the Goldberg brothers, who I hope are with us already from Toronto. So many supporters from all over. We really appreciate everybody's support, especially now year end. It was not an easy year for us and for anybody. It's day 443 of this war, and I think Yossi might have a word to say about that as well. We're going to get going in just a minute here. Let more people join. People are still joining. We're heading towards 150 people. So really glad that everybody's here from four corners of the globe and waiting to hear about a couple of amazing birds, and not just a couple of amazing birds, but some really amazing initiatives and cross-border, uh, world-spanning initiatives that have gotten a lot of accolades from uh, environmentalists and leaders around the world. Recently, Yossi just got a letter from our own Minister of Agriculture about the use of barn owls as biological pest controls. So many interesting stories we're going to hear tonight. So Yossi Leshem is a professor of zoology at Tel Aviv University. He is a former CEO of SPNI and a former chairman of the board of SPNI, a zoologist, ornithologist who really has changed the study of ornithology in Israel. I hope he'll talk a little bit about his flying with the birds and the gliders and
No.
helping. Yossi's shaking his head. It's one of the things he probably doesn't want to have time to talk about. But Yossi, oh, in the late 70s, he mapped bird migration in order to save lives and keep Israeli Air Force planes from colliding with birds on their migration routes. An amazing success story, which really changed aviation and birds. Um, but there's lots to talk about, and two of Yossi's life or decades long projects, the national bird of Israel, the beautiful hoopoe you see there, and the no less beautiful barn owl, and how that works with as biological pest control all over the world. Welcome everybody. Appreciate you from Canada and the States and Europe and probably Asia and certainly here in Israel. Happy to be with everybody tonight. Yossi will talk and we'll have time for questions and answers. You can put some questions in the Q&A feature. And Yossi, take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you, Jay, for inviting me to another webinar. It's a great pleasure to be with you here, with so many people to listen about our activity in Israel. But first, I have to tell you, 6 hours ago, I visited one of our staff who worked with the Israeli Air Force, Yuval Milo, from Karmei Yosef, and unfortunately, he lost his son in the battle in Gaza, in the Nahal Brigade. and he is now sitting Shiva at his home. I was there, and this is really so many people were killed. And as already Jay mentioned, it's 443 days where we have 100 Israelis captured kidnapped by Hamas. And I talk about the barn house today, a bird which is very close to my heart, and about the project of the Hoopoe. And one of our staff in Kibbutz near Yitzhak on the Gaza Strip lost also his son, who was on the 7th of October killed, and his body was kidnapped. And he is one of our staff. Our last meeting with the team of the barn house, about 30 people, were in the kibbutz there in the memory of his son. So hopefully in Hanukkah, our 100 people might come back. Even we are still optimistic we need them back home. This is also a chance to thank, special thanks when we are talking on the barn house, to the team of Toronto, to Gary, Marty, Robbie, and Bobby Rubinoff, who was mentioned in Hawaii, who are supporting the project with the barn owl for quite a lot of years, and I really appreciate their help. And I think that we go into our project. The hoopoe is a special bird, and what in the 60th anniversary of Israel, Dan Alon, who is now the CEO of the SPNI, and in the past he was leading the birth centers of the SPNI. In the 60th anniversary of the SPNI, we both thought, how can we make that every Israeli will speak about the bird? And the idea was to choose a national bird of Israel. From our studies, we found out there are 127 countries which has a national bird. Israel didn't have a national bird. So the idea was to build up a big campaign. And I want to tell you less about the bird itself, which is a special bird, but a campaign that the SPNI was leading to choose a national bird of Israel. And fortunate enough, last month I finished to write a book about the Hoopoe, the national bird of Israel, and how we succeeded to get 1.1 million people voting for the national bird of Israel in the schools, in the army units, with the public, in a democratic way. It's not, for example, like in the States, that the bald eagle was chosen not by the public, but by the President of the United States. And here it was a democratic way that the citizens of Israel, starting with kindergarten till the eldest people, choose on the 60th anniversary the national bird of Israel. And I think that the idea to make a big campaign was based on another big campaign which was led by the Nature and Park Authority and the Society for the Protection of Nature 20 years before I started this project with Dan Alon, where there was a big campaign to to protect wildflowers and stop to pick them up. And this worked mainly with the children in the school and was a huge success. So we thought maybe we should do it. Here you can see just the posters and the work which was done in the schools. And on the left side, you can see that just 4 samples of 100, as I said, 127 countries which had a national bird on the point started with a professor from Ben Gurion University, Professor Shaul Adani, who is also a world champion of walking, of hiking. He till now, since 1973, is holding the champion of walking 100 kilometers on the top time. And he is also very keen on medals and antiquities. And he found a medal under the plant sign, a medal about flowers. And when he investigated who did it, he found out that on this medal that you have 3 plants. You have as you can see here, the 3 plants for symbolizing the spring, the winter, and the summer. And we started to follow him and try to look for the birds because we are mainly in the bird business. And you can see this gentleman in 2007, unfortunately, he already passed away. His name is Jonathan Egozi, and he was the one who initiated the campaign that every school children have, when he was in the age of 6, he should know 10 plants, and when he leaves the secondary school, he should know 150 plants of Israel. This was a big campaign with medals, and everyone who succeeded to identify this bird got the medal. And as I said, we followed this by a big campaign in Israel, trying to choose the national bird. We gave criteria for the bird. For example, a migrating bird. As you know, Israel is famous for the migration, with a huge migration. And we decided that only a bird which lives in Israel, nests in Israel, and is resident can be the national bird of Israel. So we made, in all the schools in Israel, there was a place that the children had to learn about the 10 nominates for the national bird, and the children had to vote for the bird which they chose after they had a big educational system which they could learn about this. This was not only important that we learn about birds and they go out in the field near the school to identify the bird, but it was, of course, a maneuver of democratic maneuver that the children understand it's important in a democratic country like Israel, and especially in days like now, as I said, this is really highly important. So we imitated the real elections in Israel. For example, in Israel, every year in the elections, there is a secondary school in Ramat Gan, which is called the Blich School. And in this school, they always, in all the elections, succeeded to find who is going to win the election. And here you can see that in 1994, a year before he was assassinated, Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister, came to the school. There was a big campaign of all the different parties, and this got always a big coverage in the media. So we imitated this. We brought to the school the Minister of Education, at that time Professor Yuli Tamir, and the Minister of Environment, and the other ministers. The school children, the entire school, had to develop 10 parties. Each party had to learn about one of the birds which were nominated. For example, here you can see the party of, we have a beer without all alcohol, which is called Bir HaNesher, the beer of the vulture. Even the symbol is an eagle, but always this is a big mistake between vultures and eagles. So the Bir HaNesher were sponsoring the children with T-shirts and with bottles of beer without alcohol and with hats. And finally, with our campaign, they chose not the hoopoe, unfortunately, but another bird, but they got very excited, and the entire school was deeply involved in this. So at the end, as you can see, the chairman of the student council, not the teachers, were leading the whole campaign, and they here announcing the one of the bird, which was the Prinia, which won the campaign. Then we put in the biblical zoo in Jerusalem a kalpi that, as you can see, everyone who came to visit there could vote for the national bird. We did it also in the safari in Ramat Gan, and after we did it in the school children and in different places in Israel, like in the Hula Valley or like in Ma'agan Michael, where we have a field study center, we made a lecture, we made a big campaign in the army. I gave a lecture to 800 officers and educational officers in the IDF who had to learn about the project. They got all the materials, and we found out that the IDF had 14 units which are named after birds, like the ibis, the hoopoe, the kingfisher, the barn owl, and the lesser kestrel, and the long-eared owl. And what we did, we, after all the army units got the educational material, we brought the chief of staff at that time, General Gabi Ashkenazi, and all the generals of the IDF to the headquarters, and each unit had to show them why should they vote for their bird, which is named, their unit is named after this. We even, here you can see, for example, at that time, General Shkedi, who was the commander of the Israeli Air Force, voting for the bird. He, of course, voted for the kingfisher because kingfisher, shaldag in Hebrew, is the elite unit of the Air Force. And, I tell you a funny story. We tried at that time, Ehud Barak was the Minister of Defense, and I tried to convince him to come to the big campaign in the headquarters and vote. And his people, his staff, told him at that time, which was, as I said, in 2007, his people who advised him, don't go there because we are shot by all the missiles from the Gaza Strip, and people will say it's a bit bizarre that the Minister of Defense is coming to a campaign of choosing a bird. But finally, on the right side, you see Mookie Betzer, who was together with Ehud Barak in the elite unit, Sayeret Matkal, who killed the terrorist in Beirut. So after he refused to come, I called Mookie. We have our pre-army pretorei in Magan Michael, and Mookie convinced him to come, and immediately he came there and he voted for the national bird. At the end, we made a big campaign at the president's house with Shimon Peres, the late president, the ninth president of Israel. You can see Gershon Peleg on his right side. You can see the minister of environment. And on the right side, you see the famous Paul Winter, who won 45 Grammys. And with him, we made a piece which is called Flyways. So he came to play that. And finally, Shimon Peres revealed the bird which was chosen, and as I said, 1.1 million people voted for the Hoopoe, which was, of course, a very exciting story, because I think that everyone in Israel suddenly heard about the national bird of Israel. Here you can see Paul Winter playing in honor of the Hoopoe and the president of Israel. We made T-shirts, and the first T-shirt was given to the president of Israel, as you can see, holding it very proudly. And we even, from one school, they brought the president of Israel a nest box for the Hoopoe in the resident garden, so that it was immediately attached to an olive tree, and Hoopoe came to nest in the president's residence. And later, I have to tell you another funny story. They chose 12 people who had a big impact on nature conservation in Israel, and 6 of them, in fact, were SPNI staff like Yoav Sagi and Azaria Alon and Professor Amos Zahavi. And I got this award for my activity protecting birds in Israel. And there was a big event in Caesarea with 3,000 people. The Ministry of Environment organized this, and I was already booked in a conference in California. So I told the minister, sorry, I'm already booked. My name is there, and I have to be there. I cannot get them annoyed. So he told me, you are crazy. 3,000 people are coming, and you will not be there. So I said, no, I am going to the California. Later on, a week later, Shimon Peres called me and told me, Yoti, what are you doing? You cannot escape our ceremony in Caesarea. So I told him I will send my grandchild, who was at that time age of 10. He will come with the Hoopoe T-shirt that I gave you too. And when my grandson went on the stage to get the prize, Shimon Peres, you know what he told him? You are much nicer than your grandfather. So this campaign, with such a big PR that we did in Israel, and SPNI was leading all this, got 2 very prestigious prizes from the, one was Effie and one the Roaring Liar, for the successful and how we succeeded to get so many people to vote for the national bird. And then it went out of control. For example, like you have in the United States, the ceremony of Halloween. In Israel, it's in Purim. There is a big event in the big towns which is called Adloyada, where people are masked, and there was a big parade, and the parade was led by Shimon Peres hugging the Hoopoe, as you can see here. And you can see that one of the units of the army, which are now in Gaza Strip, is called Duchifat, as you see here, the Hoopoe. And then in Petah Tikva, there was a new square with a big calm of the Hoopoe, and the male and the female. And even Professor Stanley Fisher, who was the governor of the Bank of Israel, who is a very keen hiker and he likes bird. I took him several times together with Dan Alon in the field. We convinced him to make a special national coin with the hoopoe from gold, and he gave a lecture uh, on the economic value of ornithology, which was an amazing lecture explaining the public how important it is to protect the birds, which has also an economic impact. And then, as I said, it went out of control. For example, when our Prime Minister Netanyahu went for the first time ever to visit Modi, the Prime Minister of India, along the way from the landing airport to the place of the ceremony, the Indian guys made a long 500 meter the flag of Israel with the flag of India under the title Long Live India-Israel Friendship. But what was in the center, as you can see here, was the national bird of Israel, the hoopoe, and the peacock, which is the national bird of India. So you can see that the hoopoe started to play a key role in all this activity. And in the Olympic Games in Tokyo, later on, they made kimonos to every country, and kimono with special size of the country. And they chose the menorah of Israel with the seven candles, with the word in Hebrew peace, and the national bird on the kimono with the hoopoe. So after the national bird, we succeeded to convince all the schools in Israel to make also not a national bird, but the bird of the community, the bird of the town. And different towns choose different birds. For example, Tel Aviv chose the swift and other countries. And in the book, when we wrote the book, we found out that in the Quran, in the Muslim, with the Muslims, they have a story. The King Solomon wanted to spy Queen Sheba if she believes in one God or in many others. And he sent the hoopoe as the spy to Queen Sheba. She came back and told King Solomon she doesn't believe in one God. And the hoopoe became a symbol of spy. And when I wrote the book, I found out, together with the chairman of the Hoopoe Foundation, Allah Borukun, who is a Druze and can read Arabic, 7 Arabic countries, that the hoopoe is the symbol of the intelligence of the country. So you see, we made the golden coins, we made special wine. At that time, we still used telephone cards. So the Bezek, which is the telecard company in Israel, made 6 million telephone cards with the national bird. We made stamps. And as I said, till now, you ask every boys' school or everyone, what is the national bird of Israel? They say the hoopoe. Now, to finalize the big campaign we made with hundreds media systems, I want to show you a piece which was done by Colbert Report in the States. Okay, so I think this became, as I said, a huge success story. That's the reason we wrote this book in Hebrew, and I hope that in the near future we find a way to translate it also to English, so it will be available also in the English-speaking countries, including we want to add a big paragraph where to see birds in Israel, what time of the year, and which places. So that was first part of my presentation. The,
Yossi,
yes,
let me just interrupt with one quick comment and a question.
yes.
My comment is just that people probably don't know Paul Winter, but I had the chance to meet him with you in New York briefly. Paul Winter, he won those 45 Grammys because he is one of the founders, the pioneers of animal sounds music. He recorded whales and wolves, I believe, and really started the whole movement of the beauty of listening to the rhythm and harmony of animal sounds, calls, speech. Really interesting. And my question, Yossi, just before we go on and lose the bird, the barn owl, the duchifat, and I'm so entertained by this lecture. I've heard it before, and Stephen Colbert. But my question to you, I've never asked you this. Was the Hoopoe did you have a candidate? Were you pulling for anybody? Not publicly, I assume, but did you want the Hoopoe? Hoopoe?
I tell you, we made, and to be democratic, we made a team of 28 people, including, for example, Yossi Sarid, who was our former Minister of Environment, and the late Meir Shalev, who is a famous author in Israel, Meir Shalev, who wrote a lot about wildlife. And we put in the team um, um, also other people like Moti Kirschenbaum, who was the keen media guy. I didn't talk about it because time is limited, but
Right.
he got us 12 celebrities who each one chose one bird and pushed in the media. So we had hundreds of media clips. And some people say, why did you vote the Hoopoe? For example, the Hoopoe is not only in Israel, it's on a very big areas of the Palearctic and in Africa. Uh, we had one of the nomination was the Palestine sunbird. And we said if the national bird will be chosen, the Palestine sunbird, we are again in a political problem, even with the birds. But fortunately enough, the Hoopoe got 35% of the votes because the nice colors, as you have seen, with white, black, and orange. And it's in the Bible. Not only I told about the Quran, it's also, in the Bible it was mentioned that King Solomon, when he built the temple, he was not allowed to cut the stones with iron. So the Hoopoe found a worm which is called Shamir, and Shamir was cutting for King Solomon and the stones for the temple. And since then, King Solomon talked to all the animals through the Hoopoe. So the Hoopoe got a lot of legends and stories, and the students voted. Some people ask me why did they vote the Hoopoe. I said, okay, but they voted. I'm not a politician, but also Netanyahu was voted by in Israel, and here we are. So coming back and now to the second part, I want to.
Amazing, amazing, Yossi. Thank you. And I just also want to mention it's end of the year. David just posted in the chat a link to our donation page. If you've been enjoying these webinars and what SPNI does, and you have a chance to help us out with a donation before the end of the year, we appreciate it very much. Thank you. And Yossi, I can't wait to hear about the barn owls.
Okay, so now we are coming to the barn house, and we believe, unfortunately, in the Middle East, the dove of peace failed. We are all the time in with bloodshed and with wars, and we believe that the story that I'm going to tell you now briefly is about the barn owl, which we now believe the barn owl replaced the dove of peace. So, as you know, most of you, that Israel is located in a junction of three continents from the political point of view. Of course, a lot of wars and conflicts. But 500 million birds fly over the Middle East twice a year. And 1 billion birds over such a small country is, of course, a great story. And we are trying, to connect people, to work together, to join forces. In September, I've been in Batumi, in Georgia. In Georgia, which are located, here we are in Israel, and Georgia is just near the sea here. And in Georgia, 1.3 million raptors are flying on migration from East Europe and Western Asia over Georgia, over Batumi to Israel. And we are now joining forces with Georgia, and we hope that we know now that the birds which are flying over Georgia, after 72 hours, they come to Israel. So we can give a warning to the Israeli Air Force when big numbers are coming over. So why did I got involved with the story of the barn house? Because we have some birds, for example, the lesser spotted eagle, the entire world population of lesser spotted eagle, 120,000 eagles, migrate over Israel in 2 weeks. So for European to see in one morning 5,000 birds flying over is, of course, a big excitement. So Israel has a big benefit for bird migration, 600,000 storks. And unfortunately, many of our wetlands were dried out in the Middle East, like in Turkey, in Syria, in Iraq, in Jordan, Azraq, and in Lebanon. And also in Israel, the Hula Valley was dried out. And all the pelicans who were flying over Israel, about 60,000 pelicans a year, didn't got a place to rest. So unfortunately, they were landing in our fish ponds. It was a big problem. So the question is, what was our mission? Our mission was to try and to find the solution for the migrating birds who are losing their habitats. And now our friends from Toronto are deeply involved with a big project which Dan Alon and Jay are leading, which is called Startup Nature. And in the north, in the Beishan Valley, we already are changing fish ponds to wetlands for migrating birds. And here you can see President Bush in a maneuver in Iraq in 1991, standing like a bird lover, but he forgot to remove the cover of the binocular. It happened later also to our Minister of Defense, Peretz. And the question is, how do we want to see our region? Like this, or what we are doing now, trying to get Muslim and Jews together, neighbor countries together through the platform of birds. So we started a big project under the title Migrating Birds Know No Boundaries, where we got Palestinian, Jordanian, and Israeli schools learning on the migration. We developed a big website which is working till now, and so the students could follow the migrating birds. And what we found out, we attached satellite transmitter to German stocks, 120 stocks. Everything was covered by Angela Merkel, who was at that time the Minister of Environment. And when we started to be a lot in the field, we found out that in the Hula Valley, a lot of rodents, after they dried out the Hula Valley, mainly voles in the field. And unfortunately, the farmers were spraying all over in the Hula Valley, not only in Israel, but also in the Palestinian Authority and in Jordan. And many birds, this is, for example, an imperial eagle. I don't know if you are aware, but in the United States or in Canada, you have only two species of eagle. You have the golden eagle and the bald eagle. In Israel or in Jordan, we can see 12 species of eagle. And imperial eagles are coming from Eastern Europe to winter in Israel for 4 or 5 months. And this is a measure of an imperial eagle, a global endangered species, which was poisoned in the Hula Valley. So we tried to find out how can we stop this massive poisoning. And the idea was very simple, to establish nesting boxes for barn owls. We found out from our studies that if you put it in agriculture field, a pair of barn owls eat with their chicks every year between 2,000 to 6,000 rodents every year. So the places that we are establishing the nesting boxes, the farmers are changing their mind. Instead of using pesticides, they are built on that. In 2008, it became a national project, and from 700 nesting boxes, we have now in Israel 5,000 nesting boxes. And since this project is going on a big scale, you can see here the blue color is the using of pesticides before we started our project in 2008, and it dropped down dramatically now by 70% because of this project. Later on, we found out from our studies, it started with 14 nesting boxes in Kibbutz Sde Eliyahu, which is in the Valley of Springs near Beit Shean. And we found out that in that kibbutz, from 14 nesting boxes, some of the barn owls are crossing to Jordan, and Jordanian birds are flying over. So I succeeded to get the general on the right side, General Mansour Abu Rashid, who was the head of intelligence of the Jordan army. You see him here shaking hands with His Majesty King Hussein. And together, when the peace treaty was signed, our General Baruch Spiegel, they joined forces. And as you know, the border with Jordan is the longest border with an Arab country. And the idea was to step to peace building by three original directions: to build trust, to build peacing, and cross-border cooperation. And since the peace treaty was signed, you can see here on the left side General Mansour Abu Rashid, his late General Rabin, Clinton, His Majesty King Hussein, and Ezer Weizmann signing the peace treaty. And this was, of course, very important, not only for Israel, but also for Jordan. Now with the problems with Iran, the pressure on Jordan is also very high. So all this cooperation with Jordan has a very big value, not only with the barn house, but on different level. And you have to understand, for the Muslim, the barn house are an omen, bringing bad luck. And the general got very excited with this cooperation. He developed in Jordan a man center for peace and development, and he succeeded to get us many farmers. And we have now about 400 nesting boxes with farmers in Jordan. And you can see we have seminars where the Jordanian farmers and Israeli farmers are meeting, also the conservationists. And you can see Palestinian farmers who also joined our campaign. And suddenly the farmers and the local people understood this is a big story, not only for the environment, but it's a people-to-people cooperation. You can see here the guy with the bird is an Israeli, that's a Palestinian, this is a Jordanian. And when they came to the Valley of Spring, the Israeli immediately went to his home and brought the dates that he's growing to show the farmers from the Palestinian Authority in Jordan how good that. The Palestinians also made an NGO like the SPNI. It's much smaller, of course, Barn Owl Project. And you can see here the Jordanian farmers and the team of General Mansour with our teachers walking in the field, monitoring the nesting boxes. And we made also posters without Hebrew. So also farmers who have something with the peace treaty and are not accepting it, we put only Arabic. So we have all the farmers. And here you can see a group of Jordanian farmers, everyone hold a barn owl and smile. We have already now 5 pairs of Jordanian and Israeli barn owls who made a couple and raised chick together. And in some of these seminars, like this one in Jordan, you can see they are dancing together, happy, Jordanian, Palestinian, and Israelis. And we are working also with the Bedouin population in Israel, in the Negev, and in the north. Here you can see a school in a Moshav Be'er Tuvia, where the teacher is explaining the students from Chura, from a Bedouin settlement, and from Be'er Tuvia, how to analyze the pellets. As you know, owls are voting pellets, and the children sit together analyzing the pellets, and for them it's like a kinder egg to open and to see a surprise what kind of rodents they were feeding. So their attitude of omen, of bad luck, is changed completely by them. We succeeded also to bring General Mansour to our parliament, to the Knesset. And when Ruby Rivlin, who was later our president, was the speaker of the Knesset, we made an exhibition on the barn house, as you see here, with our Minister of Environment at that time, Gilad Erdan, who was in the United Nations, as you know. So we are now going all over the world together. We have also our partner from Lausanne University, Professor Alexander Roulen, who is a world expert of barn house, and he got very excited with the story as a representative of a neutral country. And we went, for example, in the World Economic Forum in Davos and made a presentation about our regional cooperation. And the president of Switzerland got so excited when we went to meet him that he initiated a one-day tour to learn about barn owls in the Middle East with 150 ambassadors in Switzerland. So you see here the president, Mr. Bresset of Switzerland, with General Mansour and myself. We made there an exhibition. And then Shimon Peres couldn't come to Davos. He got his first heart attack. And Peres in Hebrew means bearded vulture. And Professor Roulen made an original painting of a bearded vulture. So we are deeply involved in this. The Jordanian also in the bunkers on the border, which are active, we are putting facilities for the bats in the Rift Valley, and the general brought all the colonels from the Jordanian army to do the same on his side. On the Dead Sea, we made a seminar with artists on both sides, 6 days painting in Israel, 6 days painting in Jordan. We brought hundreds of students to learn about the problems of the Dead Sea, which is dying out, including a Palestinian from Jericho. And now, on the 19th of January, we are going to Greece. We are now 13 countries. Also, after the Palestinian and Jordanian joined us, we got Morocco, Cyprus, Greece, Germany, Ukraine, uh, and other countries, 13 countries, who are coming to a conference in Greece, and they established, following the SPNI, with an NGO which is called Tito. Tito is Alba, is the Latin name of the barn owl. So we are going there. You can see here in Cyprus, we went to meet the Minister of Agriculture of Cyprus. On the left side, you see Mr. Leventis, who is a big philanthropist, who gave us $100,000 for Morocco, not for us, but for Morocco. We convinced him because he got a lot of business in Africa, and he is originally from Cyprus, and he will be coming also in Greece when we will be there next month. And you see here our friend from Switzerland. And finally, we succeeded also to meet the Pope, and the Pope was very excited, the Pope Franciscus, from our activity, that we came together with the General and with Alex and with the Palestinian. You see, unfortunately, I have to cover the face of the Palestinian, because I promised him that his face will not be open for the public. Otherwise, he can have problems in these tension days in the Middle East. So the Pope was very excited to hear about our regional project, and he promised to support our activities. And last year, in the seminar which we did in Israel and in Jordan, a year before the war started in October, President Herzog and his wife accepted us. This is our partner from Morocco, Professor Imad Shirkawi, who is deeply now involved in the project with General Mansour Abu Rashid. And the last year, we went to meet the Minister of Agriculture in Cyprus, and she got also very excited, and she's supporting the team of BirdLife Cyprus. And in Cyprus, as you know, they have the UNDP on the border between the parts of the Greek and the Turkish part. So you see all the United Nations people are involved in a project of 100 nesting boxes on the buffer zone between the Turkish and the Greek part. So we went there to see it. It was really moving to see what they are doing there. This is our friend from Morocco. And we are now developing a big study led by Dr. Or Spiegel, who is the son of the General Spiegel, and the student Shlomo Cain, and we are putting in the Beit Shean Valley and in the Harod Valley huge antennas. It's called Atlas system, so we can follow the barn owls. And Shlomo, he's my PhD students, together with Or Spiegel, who established this system in the Harod Valley. You can see one barn owl out. He put already radios on 200 owls. 36 of them were crossing. We have every 8 seconds the location of the owl, and you can see how the owl is moving from Israel, crossing the Jordan River to Jordan, then coming back, and vice versa. We went also to Dubai to convince the Emirates to join us, and the Minister of Environment of the Emirates promised to join forces. And after, we will be in Greece with 13 countries. In 2026, we plan to be in Geneva, to have 25 African countries and more countries from North and South America. So we plan to have 50 countries, starting with one small kibbutz in Sde Eliyahu on a much bigger scale, hopefully in 2026. So you see, we have our seminars together. And again, I want to express my special thanks to Gary, Marty, Ruby, and Bob Rubinoff, who are supporting the story of the barn owls, together with Larry Kornhauser from Australia and other staff. We are now with the Army for the Protection of Nature trying to clean the Jordan River, and hopefully you see here on a boat a team from Israel and a team from the Jordan Army making a survey in the Jordan River. Okay, it's stuck. Oh, 1 second. Oh my God. Okay, unfortunately, I see that it's stuck. So, to sum up, what I wanted to tell you is that I think that the story of the barn owl is a real sample that if you want to conserve nature, you have to join forces. We have to work together, not to run each one of us by ourselves. And that's what we are doing now with 13 countries. And as I said, the vision is 50 countries. And you are most welcome in sometimes in the winter of 2026 to come to Geneva and enjoy our big meeting with the Barnhouse, which started in Israel in the Middle East. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we see you again after everything will be hopefully peaceful in the Middle East to enjoy our birds, the migration, and of course the barn owls and the hoopoe all over Israel. Thank you very much.
Wow, Yossi. I mean, seriously, I just every time I hear you talk, I can't believe how peripatetic you are, busily running around the world for decades now, advancing so many different projects. I just wanted to add, I didn't want to interrupt you, but when you quickly talked about the bat project along the Jordan River, which is fascinating, so important. These are insectivore bats that eat pests, not the many species of fruit bats that we're all common with in our cities in Israel and otherwise. But this is the reason these bunkers became bat colonies is because of the peace treaty whose signing we saw in the other picture. After 1994, the Israeli army and the Jordanian army decommissioned about 20 bunkers, I think, on both sides of the river.
Yeah,
And somebody had the idea that if we just strung up wires, they'd be incredible bat colonies, and voila, you created this other incredible international cooperation project with with a winged creature, not a bird, but bats. I know you guys, you birders are
yeah.
close to the bat population.
In fact,
So Yossi, there's a few questions here. We'll get to
yeah,
them, and
okay,
so make
okay.
sure. Mark Balin asks, has the proliferation of parrots in Israel had a negative effect on the hoopoe population or other native avian species?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have an invasive species in Israel, which is called an Indian myna. The hoopoe are nesting in holes in trees, and the myna is also nesting in holes in trees, and the myna is very aggressive. Unfortunately, the myna are now all over Israel, and of course they are competing with the hoopoes, and they reduced the population, but it looks that the hoopoe are recovering again, and you can see it in grasses. You know, they are walking on the ground in
Yeah.
the university, for example, in Tel Aviv, on the big grass areas. You can see always hoopoes flying around.
Interesting. And Mark was actually asking about the parrots, the drarot, the parakeets or whatever those green invasive species are.
Ah,
But
yeah, okay, that's another species, the right-necked parakeet, which are now on a huge number. For example, and they, you know, they are parakeets. They are eating seeds. And for example, there is a kibbutz on the coast. It's called Kibbutz Ma'abarot. They were growing 2,000 dunams. It's, let's say, 500 acres of sunflowers. They had to stop it because the parakeets came by thousands, eating all their sunflowers, and they lost the battle. You know,
wow,
sometimes. So this is another invasive species, the parakeets, which no solution meanwhile.
wow, that's interesting. That sounds very Israeli of those
Yeah,
minus
okay.
parakeets. Slicha.
They are
Um,
behaving like Israelis. They are in big numbers and they are very noisy.
they're noisy. They're pretty though,
Yeah, yeah,
and
okay.
the Drarot are really incredible. You can hear them on trees in Tel Aviv all over the place. Um, a link to the video will be available. Yes, this if you mean by this webinar, Charlene, yeah, this webinar is recorded. It will be online tomorrow on our site, and you can write us. We can make sure you have the link. Uh, so I guess that'll include the link to the Stephen
So
Colbert video.
maybe I will tell you just that was we just produced a video of 30 minutes, which we are trying still to get it to some channels, but the 30 minutes film was also sponsored by the Triple Brothers of Goldberg and Rubinoff from Toronto, and we are using it now all over. And I just want to tell you that I met the Swiss ambassador last month, and I gave him the copy of the film. And he, in the other day, he called me, Yossi, the film is fantastic, and in 3 weeks he made the reception at his residence with 24 ambassadors where we were showing the film and of course discussing with the countries how to join this project of the barn owl which replaced the dove of peace. So really, this film is doing the job. We are going to show it in Greece, but more exciting, on Thursday we have the SPNI Birding Lecture Day. We are doing it for 45 years, and this will be the year 45, and there will be the premiere of uh, of the film to the public of Israel, and this is in Smolash Hall in Tel Aviv University, with 1,200 people are coming each year to enjoy the lectures and the activity of our bird activity around the country.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Ellen Castle, where can you buy a Hoopoe t-shirt or poster? Do you have them
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sale?
of course. In SPNI, just send
And
the details. It's $15 including P&P, and you'll get it home. Send an email to
okay,
Jay or
way
to
to
us.
go.
You
Let
just
us
give.
know. Ellen,
But don't
contact
make a
us.
mistake. Give your size. Don't make, I get always small t-shirts and I need extra large.
Ellen, be in touch with us. Fabia Shaw, these ventures between companies, between countries, happily surprised to hear they continue. Can you comment on changes since October 7th? I want to address this, Yossi, because this was very nostalgic, all
Sure.
of this border cooperation between countries. Certainly, is talking about the Barn Owl project is current, and Cyprus and Greece and Switzerland, that's all current, and Jordan as well. But so much of the cooperation that was possible with the Palestinian Authority and in the years after Oslo really has changed in the last decade, let's say. And our own project at Kfar Rupin, we were moving forward with a cross-border wetland right there. The Jordan water, the Ministry of Water of Jordan, and other levels of there had been a lot of contact, and things changed certainly after October 7th, but before that, with a rise of this current government and the year of judicial reforms. It's been a long process of what they call the absence of normalization, even in contacts with environmental and cultural easy topics for cooperation hasn't been so much lately. Yossi, you want to add to that? And I just want to say this was inspiring. I mean, on one hand, it feels nostalgic. On the other hand, it feels like where we can be in an era of even somewhat peace.
Yeah, maybe I wanted to add, if you already talked about it, because I lost them here. Uh, Look at this. The Beishan Valley is a stopover site for the pelicans, for example, and for the storks and for others. So you can see this is the area in Kfar Upin, which is the Startup Nature Project. Okay, and you see that we convinced the general, and this is the borderline, and on the other side of the about 50 acres of wetland, which is now restored, he will do the same on the Jordanian part. So the startup nation, hopefully soon in the coming 2 or 3 years, will be on the both sides of the border for startup nature of what we are talking. But that,
Inshallah.
inshallah, and last maybe not least, because it suddenly jumped out, we had last month anniversary of 30 years of the peace treaty with Jordan. But unfortunately, uh, as you might know, because of the political situation, the Jordanian could not come. So it was like a wedding that the male and the female come, but the Jordanian couldn't come. So hopefully in the future we continue this. Okay.
Hopefully, and Yossi, I also wanted to mention while we're talking about it, you talked about you and General Mansour went on the road and you met the Pope in the Vatican and you met in Davos and in Switzerland, and I mean, but you didn't mention we also met Leon and Maggie in New Jersey, and we met the Goldbergs in Toronto in an event which featured the very esteemed author Margaret Atwood. So you guys have really been everywhere.
Yeah. So you see, these are the 13 partners of the Barn Owl project, which we are now meeting in Greece next month. And I always like to finish with this a message to take home. And we have nesting boxes, so it's good to think outside of the box. And something which I heard from Shimon Peres, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's what we did today in the webinar. We tried to join forces all over the world, hopefully to protect nature, the birds and their habitat. And again, thank you very much for listening. It was a big pleasure to be together. And see you in Israel.
Thank you very much, Yossi. If you want a link, Murray, Jordanians and Israelis mostly speak English when they meet, as do I think people from all over the world who have different languages. Um, do kestrels use the barn owl boxes, Yossi?
Huh?
Uh, there's a question: do kestrels use the barn owl boxes?
And
How
now
do you?
we have special. No, we have special nesting boxes also for Kessel, which are a bit with a bigger open income because the barn owls are dominating the Kessel nest. But you know the barn owl are doing most of the job because the rodents are active at night. But from our studies, we found out that the Kessels are also supplying some pest control system by eating the voles or the rodents which are active in the late afternoon or early morning. So the kestrel have also a job of pest control in agriculture fields, but it's different boxes.
Great. Great. If we didn't get to any questions that you asked and you're really curious, we'll answer them offline. Let everybody go here for holiday celebrations. We didn't say to everybody Happy Hanukkah in a couple days and a Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Happy New Year as well. We'll be back. Our next webinar is, I believe, on January 12th, and that is with one of Yossi's successors, both as a leading ornithologist and as a CEO of SPNI. Dan Alon is going to be recapping what was a very, very challenging, interesting, and in many ways fulfilling year for SPNI. That is a very, very tough year here in Israel, but as I've said before in these webinars, and as you know, if you're reading our mail, SPNI's response to this year has been something that has given us and the staff and SPNI volunteers and members, and I hope you supporters as well, a lot of satisfaction in knowing that we can be part of the effort to help Israelis heal in nature, and now we're working on the rehabilitation of the North and South, and. And thank you all very much for your support for the year. Thank you for those who've made donations during this webinar and for those who can consider it before the end of the year. Appreciate it very much. And Laila Tov, Tzoraim Tovim, Chag Sameach from Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Hargilo, David Amichai, thank you very much for the back office. Yossi, incredible. So entertaining, so educational, so just all over the place. It's just I'm a smile every time I hear these webinars. And then ending with this owl. How can that not be a bad omen if that's what it does with its neck, these things? This is crazy, this owl. But it's amazing. Kol hakavod, and may all of this cooperation expand next year into our in the immediate Middle East areas as well, and especially. So thanks very much. Thanks, David. Laila Tov. Bye bye.